the Mahabharata of Krishna-Dwaipayana Vyasa. Translated into English prose from the original Sanskrit text by Pratap Chandra Roy C.I.E. This free ebook has been downloaded from holybooks.com. Udyoga Parva. Section 81, Bhagavatyanapava. Sahadeva said, "What hath been said by the king is indeed eternal virtue, but thou, O chastiser of foes, shouldst act in such a way that war may certainly happen. Even if the Kauravas express their desire for peace with the Pandavas, still, O thou of the Sara's race, provoke thou a war with them." Having seen, O Krishna, the princess of Panchala brought in that plight into the midst of the assembly, how can my wrath be appeased without the slaughter of Suyodhana? If, O Krishna, Bhima and Arjuna and King Yudhishthira the just are disposed to be virtuous, abandoning virtue, I desire an encounter with Duryodhana in battle. Satyaki said, "The high-souled Sahadeva, O thou of mighty arms, hath spoken the truth. The rage I feel towards Duryodhana can be appeased only by his death. Dost thou not remember the rage thou too hadst felt upon beholding in the woods the distressed Pandavas clad in rags and deerskins? Therefore, O foremost of men, all the warriors assembled here unanimously subscribe to what the heroic son of Madri, fierce in battle, hath said." Vaisampayana continued, "At these words of the high-souled Duryodhana, a leonine roar was set up by all the warriors assembled there. And all the heroes, highly applauding those words of Satyaki, praised him, saying, 'Excellent! Excellent!' And anxious to fight, they all began to express their joy." Thus ends the 81st section in the Bhagavatyanapava of the Udyoga Parva. Section 82, Bhagavatyanapava. Vaisampayana said, hearing the peaceful words of the king that were fraught with both virtue and profit, King Drupada's daughter Krishna of long black tresses, afflicted with great grief, applauding Sahadeva and that mighty warrior Satyaki, addressed Madhava seated by his side. And beholding Bhimasena declare for peace, that intelligent lady overwhelmed with woe and with eyes bathed in tears said, "O slayer of Madhu, it is known to thee, O thou of mighty arms, by what deceitful means, O righteous one, the son of Dhritarashtra with his counsellors robbed the Pandavas, O Janardana, of their happiness. Thou knowest also, O thou of the Sara's race, what message was privately delivered to Sanjaya by the king. Thou hast also heard all that was said unto Sanjaya. O thou of great effulgence, these words were even these: let only 5 villages be granted to us, viz., Avisthala and Vrikasthala and Makundi and Varanavata, and for the 5th, any other. O thou of mighty arms, O Kesava, even this was the message that was to have been delivered to Duryodhana and his counsellors. But O Krishna, O thou of the Sara's race, hearing these words of Yudhishthira, endued with modesty and anxious for peace, Suyodhana hath not acted according to them. If, O Krishna, Suyodhana desired to make peace without surrendering the kingdom, there is no necessity of going thither for making such a peace. The Pandavas with the Srinjayas, O thou of mighty arms, are quite able to withstand the fierce Dhritarashtra host inflamed with rage. When they are no longer amenable to the arts of conciliation, it is not proper, O slayer of Madhu, that thou shouldst show them mercy. Those enemies, O Krishna, with whom peace cannot be established by either conciliation or presents, should be treated with severity by one desirous of saving his life. Therefore, O mighty armed Achyuta, heavy should be the punishment that deserves to be speedily inflicted upon them by thyself, aided by the Pandavas and the Srinjayas. Indeed, even this would become the son of Pritha and add to thy glory, and if accomplished, will, O Krishna, be a source of great happiness to the whole Kshatriya race. He that is covetous, whether belonging to the Kshatriya or any other order, save of course a Brahmana, even if most sinful, ought surely to be slain by a Kshatriya, who is true to the duties of his own order. The exception in the case of a Brahmana, O sire, is due to a Brahmana's being the preceptor of all the other orders, as also the first sharer of everything. Persons conversant with the scriptures declare, O Janardana, that sin is incurred in slaying one that deserveth not to be slain. So there is equal sin in not slaying one that deserveth to be slain. Act thou therefore, O Krishna, in such a way with the forces of the Pandavas and the Srinjayas, that sin may not touch thee. From excess of confidence in thee, O Janardana, I will repeat what hath been said again and again. Whatever woman, O Kesava, is there on earth like me? I am the daughter of King Drupada, risen from the sacrificial altar. I am the sister of Dhrishtadyumna, thy dear friend, O Krishna. I have by marriage become a lady of Ajamida's race, the daughter-in-law of the illustrious Pandu. I am the queen of Pandu's sons, who resemble 5 Indras in splendor. I have by these 5 heroes, 5 sons that are almighty warriors and that are morally bound to thee, O Krishna, as Abhimanyu himself. Being such, O Krishna, I was seized by the hair, dragged into the assembly and insulted in the very sight of the sons of Pandu and in thy lifetime. O Kesava, the sons of Pandu, the Panchalas, and the Vrishnis being all alive, exposed to the gaze of the assembly, I was treated as a slave by those sinful wretches. And when the Pandavas beholding it all sat silent without giving way to wrath, in my heart I called upon thee, O Govinda, saying, Save me, O save me. Then the illustrious King Dhritarashtra, my father-in-law, said unto me, Ask thou any boon, O princes of Panchala. Thou deservest boons and even honor at my hands. Thus addressed I said, Let the Pandavas be free men with their cars and weapons. Upon this the Pandavas, O Kesava, were freed but only to be exiled into the woods. O Janardana, thou knowest all these sorrows of mine. Rescue me, O lotus-eyed one, with my husband's kinsmen and relatives, from that grief. Morally, O Krishna, I am the daughter-in-law of both Bhishma and Dhritarashtra. Though such, I was yet forcibly made a slave. Fie to Partha's bowmanship, O fie to Bhimasina's might, since Duryodhana, O Krishna, liveth for even a moment. If I deserve any favor at thy hands, if thou hast any compassion for me, let thy wrath, O Krishna, be directed towards the sons of Dhritarashtra. Vaisampayana continued, having said this, the beautiful Krishna of eyes that were black in hue and large like lotus leaves, bathed in tears and walking like a cow-elephant, approached the lotus-eyed Krishna and taking with her left hand her own beautiful tresses of curly ends, deep blue in hue and scented with every perfume, endued with every auspicious mark and though gathered into a braid, yet soft and glossy like a mighty snake, spake these words, Lotus-eyed one that art anxious for peace with the enemy, thou shouldst in all thy acts call to thy mind these tresses of mine seized by Dusasana's rude hands. If Bhima and Arjuna, O Krishna, have become so low as to long for peace, my aged father then with his warlike sons will avenge for me in battle. My 5 sons also that are endued with great energy, with Abhimanyu, O slayer of Madhu at their head, will fight with the Kauravas. What peace can this heart of mine know unless I behold Dusasana's dark arms severed from his trunk and pulverized to atoms? 13 long years have I passed in expectation of better times, bidding in my heart my wrath like a smouldering fire. And now pierced by Bhima's wordy darts that heart of mine is about to break, for the mighty armed Bhima now casteth his eye on morality. Uttering these words with voice choked in tears, the large-eyed Krishna began to weep aloud with convulsive sobs and tears gushed down her cheeks. And that lady with hips full and round, began to drench her close and deep bosom by the tears she shed which were hot as liquid fire. The mighty armed Kesava then spoke comforting her in these words, Soon wilt thou, O Krishna, behold the ladies of Bharata's race weep as thou dost. Even they, O timid one, will weep like thee, their kinsmen and friends being slain. They with whom, O lady, thou art angry, have their kinsmen and warriors already slain. with Bhima and Arjuna and the twins at Yudhishthira's command and agreeably to fate and what hath been ordained by the ordainer, I will accomplish all this. Their hour having arrived, the sons of Dhritarashtra, if they do not listen to my words, will surely lie down on the earth turned as morsels of dogs and jackals. The mountains of Himavat might shift their site, the earth herself might split into 100 fragments, the firmament itself with its myriads of stars might fall down, still my words can never be futile. Stop thy tears, I swear to thee, O Krishna, soon wilt thou see thy husbands with their enemies slain and with prosperity crowning them. Thus ends the 82nd section in the Bhagavatyanapava of the Udyoga Parva. Section 83, Bhagavatyanapava. Arjuna said, Thou art now, O Kesava, the best friend of all the Kurus. Related with both the parties, thou art the dear friend of both. It behoveth thee to bring about peace between the Pandavas and the sons of Dhritarashtra. Thou, O Kesava, art competent and therefore it behoveth thee to bring about a reconciliation. O lotus-eyed one, proceeding hence for peace, O slayer of foes, say unto our ever wrathful brother Suyodhana what indeed should be said. If the foolish Duryodhana doth not accept thy auspicious and beneficial counsels fraught with virtue and profit, he will surely then be the victim of his fate. The Holy One said, Yes, I will go to King Dhritarashtra, desirous of accomplishing what is consistent with righteousness, what may be beneficial to us, and what also is for the good of the Kurus. Vaisampayana continued, the night having passed away, a bright sun arose in the east. The hour called Mayfra set in, and the rays of the sun were still mild. The month was Kaumuda Kartika under the constellation Revati, it was the season of dew, autumn having departed. The earth was covered with abundant crops all around. It was at such a time that Janardana, the foremost of mighty persons, in enjoyment of excellent health, having heard the auspicious sacred sounding and sweet words of gratified Brahmanas, like Vasava himself hearing the adorations of the celestial rishis, and having also gone through the customary acts and rites of the morning, purified himself by a bath, and decked his person with unguents and ornaments, worshipped both the sun and fire. And having touched the tail of a bull and reverently bowed to the Brahmanas, walked round the sacred fire, and cast his eyes on the usual auspicious articles placed in view. Janardana recollected Yudhishthira's words and addressed Sin's grandson Satyaki, seated near, saying, Let my car be made ready and let my conch and discus along with my mace and quivers and darts and all kinds of weapons, offensive and defensive, be placed on it, for Duryodhana and Karna and Suvila's son are all of wicked souls, and force however contemptible, should never be disregarded by even a powerful person. Understanding the wishes of Kesava, the wielder of the discus and the mace, his attendants immediately addressed themselves to yoke his car. And that car resembled in effulgence the fire that shows itself at the time of the universal dissolution, and itself in speed. And it was provided with 2 wheels that resembled the sun and the moon in luster, and it bore emblazonments of moons, both crescent and full, and of fishes, animals, and birds, and it was adorned with garlands of diverse flowers and with pearls and gems of various kinds all around. And endued with the splendor of the rising sun, it was large and handsome. And variegated with gems and gold, it was furnished with an excellent flagstaff bearing beautiful pennants. And well supplied with every necessary article, and incapable of being resisted by the foe, it was covered with tiger skins, and capable of robbing the fame of every foe, it enhanced the joy of the Yadavas. And they yoked unto it those excellent steeds named Saivya and Sugriva and Meghapushpa and Valahaka, after these had been bathed and attired in beautiful harness. And enhancing the dignity of Krishna still further, Gadura, the lord of the feathery creation, came and perched on the flagstaff of that car, producing a terrible rattle. And Sorin then mounted on that car, high as the summit of the Meru, and producing a rattle, deep and loud as the sound of the kettle drum or the clouds, and which resembled the celestial car coursing at the will of the rider. And taking Satyaki also upon it, that best of male beings set out, filling the earth and the welkin with the rattle of his chariot wheels. And the sky became cloudless, and auspicious winds began to blow around, and the atmosphere freed from the dust became pure. Indeed, as Vasudeva set out, auspicious animals and birds, whirling by the right side, began to follow him, and cranes and peacocks and swans all followed the slayer of Madhu, uttering cries of good omens. The very fire, fed with Homa libations in accompaniment with mantras, freed from smoke, blazed up cheerfully, sending forth its flames towards the right. And Vasistha and Vamadeva, and Buridyumna and Gaya, and Kratha and Sukra and Kusika and Brigu, and other Brahmarshis and celestial rishis united together, all stood on the right side of Krishna, that delighter of the Yadavas, that younger brother of Vasava. And thus worshipped by those and other illustrious rishis and holy men, Krishna set out for the residence of the Kurus. And while Krishna was proceeding, Yudhishthira, the son of Kunti, followed him, as also Bhima and Arjuna and those other Pandavas, viz., the twin sons of Madri. And the valiant Chekitna and Dhrishtaketu, the ruler of the Chedis, and Drupada and the king of Kasi, and that mighty warrior Sikhundin, and Dhrishtadyumna, and Virata with his sons, and the princes of Kekaya also, all these Kshatriyas followed that bull of the Kshatriya race to honor him. And the illustrious King Yudhishthira the Just, having followed Govinda to some distance, addressed him in these words in the presence of all those kings. And the son of Kunti embraced that foremost of all persons who never, from desire, or anger, or fear, or purpose of gain committed the least wrong, whose mind was ever steady, who was a stranger to covetousness, who was conversant with morality and endued with great intelligence and wisdom, who knew the hearts of all creatures and was the Lord of all, who was the God of gods, who was eternal, who was possessed of every virtue, and who bore the auspicious mark on his breast. And embracing him, the king began to indicate what he was to do. Yudhishthira said, "That lady who hath brought us from our infancy, who is ever engaged in fasts and ascetic penances and propitiatory rites and ceremonies, who is devoted to the worship of the gods and guests, who is always engaged in waiting upon her superiors, who is fond of her sons, bearing for them an affection that knows no bounds, who, O Janardana, is dearly loved by us, who, O grinder of foes, repeatedly saved us from the snares of Suyodhana, like a boat saving a shipwrecked crew from the frightful terrors of the sea, and who, O Madhava, however undeserving of woe herself, hath on our account endured countless sufferings, should be asked about her welfare. Salute and embrace and comfort her over and over, overwhelmed with grief as she is on account of her sons by talking of the Pandavas. Ever since her marriage she hath been the victim, however undeserving of sorrow and griefs due to the conduct of her father-in-law, and suffering hath been her portion. Shall I, O Krishna, ever see the time when, O chastiser of foes, my afflictions being over, I shall be able to make my sorrowing mother happy?" On the eve of our exile, from affection for her children, she ran after us in anguish, crying bitterly. But leaving her behind, we went into the woods. Sorrow doth not necessarily kill. It is possible therefore that she is alive, being hospitably entertained by the Anata, though afflicted with sorrow on account of her sons. O glorious Krishna, salute her for me, the Kuru King Dhritarashtra also, and all those monarchs who are senior to us in age, and Bhishma and Drona and Kripa and King Vahlika and Drona's son and Somadatta, and in fact, every one of the Bharata race, and also Vidura endued with great wisdom, that counselor of the Kurus, of profound intellect and intimate acquaintance with morality, should all, O slayer of Madhu, be embraced by thee. Having in the presence of the kings said these words unto Kesava, Yudhishthira with Krishna's permission, came back having at first walked round him. Then Arjuna, proceeding a few steps, further said unto his friend, that bull among men, that slayer of hostile heroes, that invincible warrior of Dasara's race, it is known to all the kings, O illustrious Govinda, that at our consultation it was settled that we should ask back the kingdom. If without insulting us, if honoring thee, they honestly give us what we demand, then O mighty armed one, they would please me greatly and would themselves escape a terrible danger. If however Dhritarashtra's son, who always adopts improper means, acts otherwise, then I shall surely, O Janardana, annihilate the Kshatriya race. Vaisampayana continued, when Arjuna said these words, Vrikodara was filled with delight. And that son of Pandu continually quivered with rage, and while still quivering with rage and the delight that filled his heart upon hearing Dhananjaya's words, he set forth a terrible shout. And hearing that shout of his, all the bowmen trembled in fear, and steeds and elephants were seen to pass urine and excreta. And having addressed Kesava then and informed him of his resolution, Arjuna with Janardana's permission came back, having first embraced him. And after all the kings had desisted following him, Janardana set out with a cheerful heart on his car drawn by Salvya, Sugriva, and others. And those steeds of Vasudeva, urged by Daruka, coursed onwards, devouring the sky and drinking the road. And on his way, Kesava of mighty arms met with some rishis blazing with Brahmic luster, standing on both sides of the road. And soon alighting from his car, Janardana saluted them reverently. And worshipping them duly, he inquired of them saying, is there peace in all the world? Is virtue being duly practiced? And the other three orders obedient to the Brahmanas? And having duly worshipped them, the slayer of Madhu again said, where have ye been crowned with success? Whither would ye go, and for what object? What also shall I do for yourselves? What has brought your illustrious selves down on the earth? Thus addressed, Jamdagni's son, the friend of Brahma, that lord of both gods and asuras, approached Govinda the slayer of Madhu, embraced him, and said, the celestial rishis of pious deeds and Brahmanas of extensive acquaintance with the scripture, and royal sages, O Dasara, and venerable ascetics, these witnesses, O illustrious one, of the former feats of gods and asuras, are desirous of beholding all the Kshatriyas of the earth assembled from every side, as also the counsellors sitting in the assembly, the kings and thyself, the embodiment of truth, O Janardana. O Kesava, we will go thither for beholding that grand sight. We are also anxious, O Madhava, to listen to those words fraught with virtue and profit, which will be spoken by thee, O chastiser of foes, unto the Kurus in the presence of all the kings. Indeed, Bhishma and Drona, and others, as also the illustrious Vidura and thyself, O tiger among the Yadavas, ye all will be assembled together in conclave. We desire, O Madhava, to hear the excellent, truthful, and beneficial words that thou wilt utter, and they also, O Govinda. Thou art now informed of our purpose, O thou of mighty arms. We will meet thee again. Go thither safely, O hero. We hope to see thee in the midst of the conclave, seated on an excellent seat, mustering all thy energy and might. Thus ends the 83rd section in the Bhagavatyanapava of the Udyoga Parva. Section 84, Bhagavatyanapava. Vaisampayana said, O smiter of foes, when Devki's son of mighty arms set out for Hastinapura, 10 mighty warriors capable of slaying hostile heroes, fully armed, followed in his train. And 1,000 foot soldiers and 1,000 horsemen and attendants by hundreds also formed his train, carrying, O king, provisions in abundance. Janamejaya said, how did the illustrious slayer of Madhu, of Dasara's race, proceed on his journey? And what omens were seen when that hero set out? Vaisampayana continued, listen to me as I narrate all those natural and unnatural omens that were noticed at the time when the illustrious Krishna departed for Hastinapura. Though there were no clouds in the sky, yet the roll of thunder accompanied by flashes of lightning was heard. And fleecy clouds in a clear sky rained incessantly in the rear. The 7 large rivers including the Sindhu, Indus, though flowing eastwards then flowed in opposite directions. The very directions seemed to be reversed and nothing could be distinguished. Fires blazed up everywhere, O monarch, and the earth trembled repeatedly. The contents of wells and water vessels by hundreds swelled up and ran out. The whole universe was enveloped in darkness. The atmosphere being filled with dust, neither the cardinal nor the subsidiary points of the horizon could, O king, be distinguished. Loud roars were heard in the sky without any being visible from whom these could emanate. This wonderful phenomenon, O king, was noticed all over the country. A southwesterly wind, with the harsh rattle of the thunder, uprooting trees by the thousands, crushed the city of Hastinapura. In those places, however, O Bharata, through which he of Vrishni's race passed, delicious breezes blew and everything became auspicious. Showers of lotuses and fragrant flowers fell there. The very road became delightful, being free from prickly grass and thorns. At those places where he stayed, Brahmanas by thousands glorified that giver of wealth with laudation and worshipped him with dishes of curds, ghee, honey, and presents of wealth. The very women, coming out on the road, strewed wild flowers of great fragrance on the person of that illustrious hero, devoted to the welfare of all creatures. He then came upon a delightful spot called Salibhavana, which was filled with every kind of crop, a spot that was delicious and sacred, after having, O bull of the Bharata race, seen various villages abounding in bees and picturesque to the eye and delightful to the heart, and after having passed through diverse cities and kingdoms. Always cheerful and of good hearts, well protected by the Bharatas and therefore free from all anxieties on account of the designs of invaders, and unacquainted with calamities of any kind, many of the citizens of Upaplavya, coming out of their town, stood together on the way, desirous of beholding Krishna. And beholding that illustrious one resembling a blazing fire arrived at the spot, they worshipped him who deserved their worship with all the honors of a guest arrived in their abode. When at last that slayer of hostile heroes, Kesava, came to Vrikasthala, the sun seemed to redden the sky by his straggling rays of light. Alighting from his car, he duly went through the usual purificatory rites, and ordering the steeds to be unharnessed, he set himself to say his evening prayers. And Daruka also, setting the steeds free, tended them according to the rules of equine science, and taking off the yokes and traces, let them loose. After this was done, the slayer of Madhu said, "Here must we pass the night for the sake of Yudhishthira's mission." Ascertaining that to be his intention, the attendants soon set a temporary abode and prepared in a trice excellent food and drink. Amongst the Brahmanas, O king, that resided in the village, they that were of noble and high descent, modest, and obedient to the injunctions of the Vedas in their conduct, approached that illustrious chastiser of foes Hrishiksa, and honored him with their benedictions and auspicious speeches. And having honored him of the Saras race that deserveth honor from every one, they placed at the disposal of that illustrious person their houses abounding in wealth. Saying unto them, "Enough," the illustrious Krishna paid them proper homage, each according to his rank, and wending with them to their house, he returned in their company to his own tent. And feeding all the Brahmanas with sweetmeats and himself taking his meals with them, Kesava passed the night happily there. Thus ends the 84th section in the Bhagavatyanapava of the Udyoga Parva. Section 85, Bhagavatyanapava. Vaisampayana said, meanwhile, understanding from his spies that the slayer of Madhu had set out, Dhritarashtra with his hair standing erect, respectfully addressing the mighty armed Bhishma and Drona and Sanjaya and the illustrious Vidura, said these words unto Duryodhana and his counsellors, O scion of Kuru's race, strange and wonderful is the news that we hear. Men, women and children are talking of it. Others are speaking of it respectfully and others again assembled together. Within houses where men congregate, and in open spots, people are discussing it. All say that the Sara of great prowess will come hither for the sake of Pandavas. The slayer of Madhu is by all means deserving of honor and worship at our hands. He is the Lord of all creatures and on him resteth the course of everything in the universe. Indeed, intelligence and prowess and wisdom and energy, all reside in Madhava. Worthy of honor at the hands of all righteous persons, he is the foremost of all men and is indeed eternal virtue. If worshipped, he is sure to bestow happiness, and if not worshipped, he is sure to inflict misery. If that smiter of foes, Dasara, be gratified with our offerings, all our wishes may be obtained by us through his grace in the midst of the kings. O chastiser of foes, make without loss of time every arrangement for his reception. Let pavilions be set up on the road, furnished with every object of enjoyment. O mighty armed son of Gandhari, make such arrangements that he may be gratified with thee. What doth Bhishma think in this matter? At this, Bhishma and others, all applauding those words of King Dhritarashtra, said, Excellent. King Duryodhana then, understanding their wishes, ordered delightful sites to be chosen for the erection of pavilions. Many pavilions were thereupon constructed abounding with gems of every kind, at proper intervals and at delightful spots. And the king sent thither handsome seats endued with excellent qualities, beautiful girls, and scents and ornaments, and fine robes and excellent viands, and drinks of diverse quality and fragrant garlands of many kinds. And the king of the Kurus took especial care to erect for the reception of Krishna, a highly beautiful pavilion at Vrikasthala, full of precious gems. And having made all these arrangements that were godlike and much above the capacity of human beings, King Duryodhana informed Dhritarashtra of the same. Kesava, however, of Dasara's race, arrived at the capital of the Kurus without casting a single glance at all those pavilions and all those gems of diverse kinds. Thus ends the 85th section in the Bhagavatyanapava of the Udyoga Parva. Section 86, Bhagavatyanapava. Dhritarashtra said, O Vidura, Janardana hath set out from Upaplavya. He is now staying at Vrikasthala and will come here tomorrow. Janardana is the leader of the Ahukas, the foremost person amongst all the members of the Satvata race, is high-souled, and endued with great energy and great might. Indeed, Madhava is the guardian and protector of the prosperous kingdom of Vrishnis and is the illustrious great-grandsire of even the three worlds. The Vrishnis adore the wisdom of the intelligent Krishna, even as the Adityas, the Vasus, and the Rudras adore the wisdom of Vrihaspati. O virtuous one, I will in thy presence, offer worship unto that illustrious scion of Dasara's race. Listen to me about that worship. I will give him 16 cars made of gold, each drawn by 4 excellent and well-adorned steeds of uniform color and of the Valika breed. O Kaurava, I will give him 8 elephants with temporal juice always trickling down and tusks as large as poles of plows, capable of smiting hostile ranks, and each having 8 human attendants. I will give him a century of handsome maidservants of the complexion of gold, all virgins, and manservants I will give him as many. I will give him 18,000 woolen blankets soft to the touch, all presented to us by the hillmen. I will also give him 1,000 deer skins brought from China and other things of the kind that may be worthy of Kesava. I will also give him this serene gem of the purest race that shines day and night, for Kesava alone deserves it. This car of mine drawn by mules that makes a round of full 14 tojanas a day, I will also give him. I will place before him everyday provisions 8 times greater than what is necessary for the animals and attendants that form his train. Mounted on their cars, having their person well adorned, all my sons and grandsons, save Duryodhana, will go out to receive him. And thousands of graceful and well-decked dancing girls will go out on foot to receive the illustrious Kesava. And the beautiful girls that will go out of the town for receiving Janardana will go out unveiled. Let all the citizens with their wives and children behold the illustrious slayer of Madhu with as much respect and devotion as they show when casting their eyes on the morning sun. Let the canopy all round, at my command, be crowded with pendants and banners, and let the road by which Kesava will come be well watered and its dusts removed. Let Dusasana's abode, which is better than Duryodhana's, be cleansed and well adorned without delay. That mansion, consisting of many beautiful buildings, is pleasant and delightful, and abounds with the wealth of all seasons. It is in that abode that all my wealth, as also Duryodhana's, are deposited. Let all that scion of the Vrishni race deserves be given unto him. Thus ends the 86th section in the Bhagavatyanapava of the Udyoga Parva. Section 87, Bhagavatyanapava. Vidura said, O monarch, O best of men, thou art respected by 3 worlds. Thou, O Bharata, art loved and regarded by everybody. Venerable in year as thou art, what thou wilt say at this age can never be against the dictates of the scriptures or the conclusions of well-directed reason, for thy mind is ever calm. Thy subjects, O king, are well assured that, like characters on stone, light in the sun, and billows in the ocean, virtue resideth in thee permanently. O monarch, every one is honored and made happy in consequence of thy numerous virtues. Strive therefore with thy friends and kinsmen to retain those virtues of thine. O, adopt sincerity of behavior. Do not from folly cause a wholesale destruction of thy sons, grandsons, friends, kinsmen, and all that are dear to thee. It is much, O king, that thou wishest to give unto Kesava as thy guest. Know however that Kesava deserves all this and much more. I, the whole earth itself. I truly swear by my own soul that thou dost not wish to give all this unto Krishna, either from motives of virtue or for the object of doing what is agreeable to him. O giver of great wealth, all this betrays only deception, falsehood, and insincerity. By the external acts, O king, I know thy secret purpose. The 5 Pandavas, O king, desire only 5 villages. Thou however dost not wish to give them even that. Thou art therefore unwilling to make peace. Thou seekest to make the mighty armed hero of Vrishni's race thy own, by means of thy wealth. In fact, by this means thou seekest to separate Kesava from the Pandavas. I tell thee however that thou art unable, by wealth or attention or worship, to separate Krishna from Dhananjaya. I know magnanimity of Krishna. I know firm devotion of Arjuna towards him. I know that Dhananjaya, who is Kesava's life, is incapable of being given up by the latter. Save only a vessel of water, save only the washing of his feet, save only the usual enquiries after the welfare of those he will see, Janardana will not accept any other hospitality or set his eyes on any other thing. Offer him however, O king, that hospitality which is most agreeable to that illustrious one deserving of every respect, for there is no respect that may not be offered to Janardana. Give unto Kesava, O king, that object in expectation of which, from desire of benefiting both parties, he cometh to the Kurus. Kesava desires peace to be established between thee and Duryodhana on one side and the Pandavas on the other. Follow his counsels, O monarch. Thou art their father, O king, and the Pandavas are thy sons. Thou art old and they are children to thee in years, behave as father towards them that are disposed to pay thee filial regard. Thus ends the 87th section in the Bhagavatyanapava of the Udyoga Parva. Section 88, Bhagavatyanapava. Duryodhana said, all that Vidura hath said about Krishna hath indeed been truly said, for Janardana is greatly devoted to the Pandavas and can never be separated from them. All the diverse kinds of wealth, O foremost of kings, that are proposed to be bestowed upon Janardana ought never to be bestowed upon him. Kesava is, of course, not unworthy of our worship, but both time and place are against it, for he, Krishna, O king, on receiving our worship will very likely think that we are worshipping him out of fear. This is my certain conviction, O king, that an intelligent Kshatriya must not do that which may bring disgrace upon him. It is well known to me that the large-eyed Krishna deserveth the most reverential worship of the three worlds. It is quite out of place therefore, O illustrious king, to give him anything now, for war having been decided upon, it should never be put off by hospitality. Vaisampayana continued, hearing these words of his, the grandsire of the Kurus spoke these words unto the royal son of Vichitravirya, worshipped or not worshipped, Janardana never becometh angry. None however can treat him with disrespect, for Kesava is not contemptible. Whatever, O mighty one, he purposeth to do is incapable of being frustrated by anybody by every means in his power. Do without hesitation what Krishna of mighty arms saith and bring about peace with the Pandavas through Vasudeva as the means. Truly Janardana, possessed of virtuous soul, will say what is consistent with religion and profit. It behoveth thee therefore with all thy friends to tell him what only is agreeable to him. Duryodhana said, O grandsire, I can by no means live by sharing this swelling prosperity of mine with the Pandavas. Listen, this indeed is a great resolution which I have formed. I will imprison Janardana who is the refuge of the Pandavas. He will come here tomorrow morning, and when he is confined, the Vrishnis and the Pandavas, I, the whole earth, will submit to me. What may be the means for accomplishing it, so that Janardana may not guess our purpose, and so that no danger also may overtake us, it behoveth thee to say. Vaisampayana continued, hearing these fearful words of his son about imprisoning Krishna, Dhritarashtra, with all his counsellors, was very much pained and became deeply afflicted. King Dhritarashtra then spoke those words unto Duryodhana, O ruler of men, never say this again. This is not immemorial custom. Hrishiksa cometh here as an ambassador. He is besides related to and is dear to us. He hath done us no wrong, how then doth he deserve imprisonment? Bhishma said, this wicked son of thine, O Dhritarashtra, hath his hour come. He chooseth evil, not good, though entreated by his well-wishers. Thou also followest in the wake of this wicked wretch of sinful surroundings, who treadeth a thorny path setting at naught the words of his well-wisher. This exceedingly wicked son of thine with all his counsellors coming in contact with Krishna of unstained acts, will be destroyed in a moment. I dare not listen to the words of this sinful and wicked wretch that hath abandoned all virtue. Having said this, that aged chief of the Bharata race, Bhishma of unbaffled prowess, inflamed with rage rose and left that place. Thus ends the 88th section in the Bhagavatyanapava of the Udyoga Parva. Section 89, Bhagavatyanapava. Vaisampayana said, rising up from his bed at day dawn, Krishna went through his morning rites and taking leave of the Brahmanas, set out for the city of the Kurus. And all the inhabitants of Vrikasthala, bidding farewell unto that mighty one of long arms while he was about to depart, all returned to their homes. And all the Dhartarashtras, except Duryodhana, attired in excellent robes and with Bhishma, Drona, Kripa, and others, went out to meet him. And the citizens by thousands, O king, on cars of divers kinds and many on foot, also came out desirous of beholding Hrishiksa. And meeting on the way Bhishma of spotless deed and Drona and Dhritarashtra's sons, he entered the city, surrounded by them all. And in honor of Krishna, the city was beautifully adorned and the principal streets were decorated with diverse jewels and gems. And O king, O bull of the Bharata race, on that occasion no one, man, woman or child remained indoors, so eager were the citizens for beholding Vasudeva. And all the citizens came out and lined the streets and bent their heads down to the ground singing eulogies in his honor, O king, when Hrishikesh entered the city and passed through it. And substantial mansions, filled with high-born ladies, seemed to be on the point of falling down on the ground in consequence of their living weight. And although Vasudeva's steeds were endued with great speed, yet they moved very slowly through that dense mass of human beings. And that lotus-eyed grinder of force then entered Dhritarashtra's ash-colored palace, which was enriched with numerous buildings. And having passed through the first 3 chambers of the palace, that chastiser of force, Kesava, came upon the royal son of Vichitravirya. And upon that son of Dasara's race approaching his presence, the blind monarch of great fame stood up along with Drona and Bhishma, Kripa and Somadatta, and King Valika also, all stood up for honoring Janardana. And the Vrishni hero, having approached King Dhritarashtra of great fame, worshipped him and Bhishma with proper words and without losing any time. And having offered that worship unto them according to established usage, Madhava the slayer of Madhu, greeted the other kings according to their seniority in years. And Janardana then accosted the illustrious Drona and his son, and Valika, and Kripa, and Somadatta. And there in that chamber lay a spacious seat of beautiful workmanship, made of gold and set with jewels. And at Dhritarashtra's request, Achyuta took that seat, and the priests of Dhritarashtra duly offered Janardana a cow, honey and curds and water. And after the rites of hospitality were over, Govinda remained there for a while, surrounded by the Kurus, laughing and jesting with them according to their relationship with him. And that illustrious grinder of force, honored and worshipped by Dhritarashtra, came out with the king's permission. And Madhava, having duly greeted all the Kurus in their assembly, then went to the delightful abode of Vidura, and Vidurai, having approached Janardana of Dasara's race, thus arrived at his abode, worshipped him with every auspicious and desirable offering. And he said, "What use, O lotus-eyed one, in telling thee of the joy I feel at this advent of thine, for thou art the inner soul of all embodied creatures." And after the hospitable reception was over, Vidura, conversant with all the principles of morality, inquired of Govinda, the slayer of Madhu, about the welfare of Pandavas. And that scion of Dasara's race, that chief of the Vrishnis, unto whom the past and the future were as the present, knowing that Vidura was loved by the Pandavas and friendly towards them, and learned, and firm in morality, and honest, and harboring no wrath against the Pandavas, and wise, began to tell him everything in detail about the doings of the sons of Pandu. Thus ends the 89th section in the Bhagavatyanapava of the Udyoga Parva. Section 90, Bhagavatyanapava. Vaisampayana said, Janardana, the chastiser of force, after his meeting with Vidura went then in the afternoon to his paternal aunt, Pritha. And beholding Krishna, whose countenance beamed with the effulgence of the radiant sun, arrived at her abode, she encircled his neck with her arms and began to pour forth her lamentations, remembering her sons. And at the sight, after a long time, of Govinda of Vrishni's race, the companion of those mighty children of hers, the tears of Pritha flowed fast. And after Krishna, that foremost of warriors, had taken his seat, having first received the rites of hospitality, Pritha, with a woebegone face and voice choked with tears, addressed him saying, "They who from their earliest years have always waited with reverence on their superiors, they who in friendship are attached to one another, they who deprived deceitfully of their kingdom had gone to seclusion, however worthy of living in the midst of friends and attendants, they who have subjugated both wrath and joy, are devoted to Brahmanas and truthful in speech, those children of mine who, abandoning kingdom and enjoyments and leaving my miserable self behind, had gone to the woods, plucking the very roots of my heart, those illustrious sons of Pandu, O Kesava, who have suffered woe however undeserving of it. How, alas, did they live in the deep forest abounding with lions and tigers and elephants? Deprived in their infancy of their father, they were all tenderly brought up by me. How also did they live in the mighty forest, without seeing both their parents? From their infancy, O Kesava, the Pandavas were aroused from their beds by the music of conches and drums and flutes. That they who while at home, used to sleep in high palatial chambers on soft blankets and skins of the ranku deer and were waked up in the morning by the grunt of elephants, the neighing of steeds, the clatter of car wheels and the music of conches and cymbals in accompaniment with the notes of flutes and lyres. Who, adored at early dawn with sacred sounding hymns uttered by Brahmanas, worshipped those amongst them that deserved such worship with robes and jewels and ornaments, and who were blessed with the auspicious benedictions of those illustrious members of the regenerate order. As a return for the homage the latter received, that they, O Janardana, could sleep in the deep woods resounding with the shrill and dissonant cries of beasts of prey can hardly be believed, undeserving as they were of so much woe. How could they, O slayer of Madhu, who were roused from their beds by music of cymbals and drums and conches and flutes, with the honeyed strains of songstresses and the eulogies, chanted by bards and professional reciters? Alas, how could they be waked in the deep woods by the yells of wild beasts? He that is endued with modesty, is firm in truth with senses under control and compassion for all creatures, he that hath vanquished both lust and malice and always treadeth the path of the righteous, he that ably bore the heavy burden borne by Amvarisha and Mandatri and Yayati and Nahusha and Bharata and Dilip and Sivi the son of Usinara and other royal sages of old. He that is endued with an excellent character and disposition, he that is conversant with virtue, and whose prowess is incapable of being baffled, he that is fit to become the monarch of the three worlds in consequence of his possession of every accomplishment, he that is the foremost of all the Gurus lawfully and in respect of learning and disposition, who is handsome and mighty armed and hath no enemy, oh! How is that Yudhishthira of virtuous soul and of complexion like that of pure gold? He that hath the strength of 10,000 elephants and the speed of the wind, he that is mighty and ever wrathful amongst the sons of Pandu, he that always doth good to his brothers and is therefore dear to them all, he, O slayer of Madhu, that slew Kichheka with all his relatives, he that is the slayer of the Krodavasas, of Hidimva, and of Vaka. He that in prowess is equal unto Sakra, and in might unto the wind god, he that is terrible, and in wrath is equal unto Madhava himself. He that is the foremost of all smiters, that wrathful son of Pandu and chastiser of foes who, restraining his rage, might, impatience, and controlling his soul, is obedient to the commands of his elder brother. Speak to me, O Janardana, tell me how is that smiter of immeasurable valor, that Bhimasena, who in aspect also justifies his name, that Vrikodara possessing arms like maces, that mighty second son of Pandu. O Krishna, that Arjuna of 2 arms who always regarded himself as superior to his namesake of old with 1,000 arms, and who at one stretch shooteth 500 arrows, that son of Pandu who in the use of weapons is equal unto King Kartavirya, in energy unto Aditya, in restraint of senses unto a great sage, in forgiveness unto the earth, and in prowess unto Indra himself. He, by whose prowess, O slayer of Madhu, the Gurus amongst all the kings of the earth have obtained this extensive empire, blazing with effulgence, he whose strength of arms is always adored by the Pandavas, that son of Pandu who is the foremost of all warriors and whose prowess is incapable of being frustrated, he from an encounter with whom in battle no foe ever escaped with life. He Achyuta, who is the conqueror of all, but who is incapable of being conquered by any, he who is the refuge of the Pandavas like Vasava of the celestials. How, O Kesava, is that Dhananjaya now, that brother and friend of thine? He that is compassionate to all creatures, is endued with modesty and acquainted with mighty weapons, is soft and delicate and virtuous, he that is dear to me, that mighty bowman Sahadeva, that hero and ornament of assemblies. He, O Krishna, who is youthful in years, is devoted to the service of his brothers, and is conversant with both virtue and profit, whose brothers, O slayer of Madhu, always applaud the disposition of that high-souled and well-behaved son of mine. Tell me, O thou of the Vrishni race, of that heroic Sahadeva, that foremost of warriors, that son of Madri, who always waited submissively on his elder brothers and so reverentially on me. He that is delicate and youthful in years, he that is brave and handsome in person, that son of Pandu who is dear unto his brothers as also unto all, and who indeed is their very life though walking with a separate body, he that is conversant with various modes of warfare, he that is endued with great strength and is a mighty bowman. Tell me, O Krishna, whether that dear child of mine, Nakula, who was brought up in luxury, is now well in body and mind. O thou of mighty arms, shall I ever behold again Nakula of mine, that mighty warrior, that delicate youth brought up in every luxury and undeserving of woe? Behold, O hero, I am alive today, even I who could know peace by losing sight of Nakula for the short space of time taken up by a wink of the eye. More than all my sons, O Janardana, is the daughter of Drupada dear to me. High-born and possessed of great beauty, she is endued with every accomplishment. Truthful in speech, she chose the company of her lords, giving up that of her sons. Indeed, leaving her dear children behind, she followed the sons of Pandu. Waited upon at one time by a large train of servants, and adored by her husbands with every object of enjoyment, the possessor of every auspicious mark and accomplishment, how achyuta is that Draupadi now. Having 5 heroic husbands who are all smiters of foes and almighty bowmen, each equal unto Agni in energy, alas, woe hath yet been the lot of Drupada's daughter. I have not for 14 long years, O chastiser of foes, beheld the princess of Panchala, that daughter-in-law of mine, who herself hath been a prey to constant anxiety on account of her children, whom she hath not seen for that period. When Drupada's daughter, endued with such a disposition, doth not enjoy uninterrupted happiness, it seemeth, O Govinda, that the happiness one enjoyeth is never the fruit of one's acts. When I remember the forcible dragging of Draupadi to the assembly, then neither Vibhatsu, nor Yudhishthira, nor Bhima, nor Nakula, nor Sahadeva, becometh an object of affection to me. Never before had a heavier grief been mine than what pierced my heart when that wretch Dusasana, moved by wrath and covetousness, dragged Draupadi, then in her flow, and therefore clad in a single raiment, into the presence of her father-in-law in the assembly and exposed her to the gaze of all the Kurus. It is known that amongst those that were present, King Valika, Kripa, and Somadatta, were pierced with grief at this sight, but of all present in that assembly, it was Vidura whom I worship. Neither by learning, nor by wealth doth one become worthy of homage. It is by disposition alone that one becomes respectable. O Krishna, endued with great intelligence and profound wisdom, the character of the illustrious Vidura, like unto an ornament that he wears adorns the whole world. Vaisampayana continued, filled with delight at the advent of Govinda, and afflicted with sorrow on account of her sons, Pritha gave expression to all her diverse griefs. And she said, Can gambling and the slaughter of deer which, O chastiser of foes, occupied all wicked kings of old, be a pleasant occupation for the Pandavas? The thought consumeth, O Kesava, that being dragged into the presence of all the Kurus in their assembly by Dhritarashtra's sons, Insults worse than death were heaped on Krishna. O chastiser of foes, the banishment of my sons from their capital and their wanderings in the wilderness, these and various other griefs, O Janardana, have been mine. Nothing could be more painful to me or to my sons themselves, O Madhava, than that they should have had to pass a period of concealment, shut up in a stranger's house. Full 14 years have passed since the day when Duryodhana first exiled my sons. If misery is destructive of the fruits of sins, and happiness is dependent on the fruits of religious merit, then it seems that happiness may still be ours after so much misery. I never made any distinction between Dhritarashtra's sons and mine so far as maternal affection is concerned. By that truth, O Krishna, I shall surely behold thee along with the Pandavas safely come out of the present strife with their foes slain, and the kingdom recovered by them. The Pandavas themselves have observed their vow with such truthfulness striking to Dharma that they are incapable of being defeated by their enemies. In the matter of my present sorrows, however, I blame neither myself nor Suyodhana, but my father alone. Like a wealthy man giving away a sum of money in gift, my father gave me away to Kuntibhoja, while a child playing with a ball in my hands, thy grandfather, O Kesava, gave me away to his friend, the illustrious Kuntibhoja. Abandoned, O chastiser of foes, by my own father, and my father-in-law, and afflicted with insufferable woes, what use, O Madhava, is there in my being alive? On the night of Savyaschan's birth, in the lying-in room, an invisible voice told me, this son of thine will conquer the whole world, and his fame will reach the very heavens. Slaying the Kurus in a great battle and recovering the kingdom, thy son Dhananjaya will with his brothers perform 3 grand sacrifices. I do not doubt the truth of that announcement. I bow unto Dharma that upholds the creation. If Dharma be not a myth, then O Krishna, thou wilt surely achieve all that the invisible voice said. Neither the loss of my husband, O Madhava, nor loss of wealth, nor our hostility with the Kurus ever inflicted such rending pains on me as that separation from my children. What peace can my heart know when I do not see before me that wielder of Gandiva, viz., Dhananjaya, that foremost of all bearers of arms? I have not for 14 years, O Govinda, seen Yudhishthira, and Dhananjaya, and Vrikodara. Men perform the obsequies of those that are missed for a long time, taking them for dead. Practically, O Janardana, my children are all dead to me and I am dead to them. Say unto the virtuous King Yudhishthira, O Madhava, that thy virtue, O son, is daily decreasing. Act thou therefore in such a way that thy religious merit may not diminish. Fight to them that live, O Janardana, by dependence on others. Even death is better than a livelihood gained by meanness. Thou must also say unto Dhananjaya and the ever-ready Vrikodara that, the time for that event is come in view of which a Kshatriya woman bringeth forth a son. If you allow the time sleep without your achieving anything, then though at present ye are respected by all the world, ye will be only doing that which would be regarded as contemptible. And if contempt touches you, I will abandon you forever. When the time cometh, even life, which is so dear, should be laid down. O foremost of men, thou must also say unto Madri's sons that are always devoted to Kshatriya customs, more than life itself, strive ye to win objects of enjoyment, procurable by prowess, since objects won by prowess alone can please the heart of a person desirous of living according to Kshatriya customs. Repairing thither, O mighty armed one, say unto that foremost of all bearers of arms, Arjuna the heroic son of Pandu, tread thou the path that may be pointed out to thee by Draupadi. It is known to thee, O Kesava, that when inflamed with rage, Bhima and Arjuna, each like unto the universal destroyer himself, can slay the very gods. That was a great insult offered unto them, viz., that their wife Krishna, having been dragged into the assembly, was addressed in such humiliating terms by Dusasana and Karna. Duryodhana himself had insulted Bhima of mighty energy in the very presence of the Kuru chiefs. I am sure he will reap the fruit of that behavior, for Vrikodara, provoked by a foe, knoweth no peace. Indeed, once provoked, Bhima forgets it not for a long while, even until that grinder of foes exterminates the enemy and his allies. The loss of kingdom did not grieve me, the defeat at dice did not grieve me. That the illustrious and beautiful princess of Panchala was dragged into the assembly while clad in a single raiment and made to hear bitter words grieved me most. What, O Krishna, could be a greater grief to me? Alas, ever devoted to Kshatriya customs and endued with great beauty, the princess, while ill, underwent that cruel treatment, and though possessing powerful protectors was then as helpless as if she had none. O slayer of Madhu, having thee and that foremost of all mighty persons, Rama, and that mighty warrior Pradyumna for me and my children's protectors, and having, O foremost of men, my sons, the invincible Bhima and the unretreating Vijaya both alive, that I had still such grief to bear is certainly strange. Vaisampayana continued, thus addressed by her, Sori, the friend of Partha, then comforted his paternal aunt, Pritha, afflicted with grief on account of her sons. And Vasudeva said, what woman is there, O aunt, in the world who is like thee? The daughter of King Surasena, thou art by marriage admitted into Ajamida's race. High-born and highly married, thou art like a lotus transplanted from one mighty lake into another. Endued with every prosperity and great good fortune, thou wert adored by thy husband. The wife of a hero, thou hast again given birth to heroic sons. Possessed of every virtue and endued with great wisdom, it behoveth thee to bear with patience both happiness and misery. Overcoming sleep and languor, and wrath and joy, and hunger and thirst, and cold and heat, thy children are always in the enjoyment of that happiness which as heroes should be theirs. Endued with great exertion and great might, thy sons, without affecting the comforts derivable from the senses such as satisfy only the low and the mean, always pursue that happiness which as heroes they should. Nor are they satisfied like little men having mean desires. They that are wise enjoy or suffer the same of whatever is enjoyable or sufferable. Indeed, ordinary persons, affecting comforts that satisfy the low and the mean, desire an equable state of dullness without excitement of any kind. They, however, that are superior, desire either the acutest of human suffering or the highest of all enjoyments that is given to man. The wise always delight in extremes. They find no pleasure betwixt, they regard the extreme to be happiness, while that which lies between is regarded by them as misery. The Pandavas with Krishna saluted thee through me. Representing themselves to be well, they have inquired after thy welfare. Thou wilt soon behold them become the lords of the whole world, with their foes slain, and themselves invested with prosperity. Thus consoled by Krishna, Kunti, afflicted with grief on account of her sons, but soon dispelling the darkness caused by her temporary loss of understanding, replied unto Janardana, saying, whatever, O mighty armed one, thou, O slayer of Madhu, regardest as proper to be done, let that be done without sacrificing righteousness, O chastiser of foes, and without the least guile. I know, O Krishna, what the power of thy truth and of thy lineage is. I know also what judgment and what prowess thou bringest to bear upon the accomplishment of whatever concerns thy friends. In our race, thou art virtue's self, thou art truth, and thou art the embodiment of ascetic austerities. Thou art the great Brahma, and everything rests on thee. What therefore thou hast said must be true. Vaisampayana continued, bidding her farewell and respectfully walking round her, the mighty aunt Govinda then departed for Duryodhana's mansion. Thus ends the 98th section in the Bhagavatyanapava of the Udyoga Parva. If you enjoyed this audiobook, please like and subscribe to be notified of when new audiobooks are uploaded. Thank you for listening and learning. Shanti.